if half the cars coming into the United States are Ford made, that's hard to turn around overnight, as you know. So what would you say to people in the auto industry who are worried about that timeline and how quickly that could shift?
Buy American.
And what about American-made cars and produced cars that are being made using foreign-made parts?
Well, I believe the USMCA is exempt.
Yeah, those that are compliant with this. Obviously,
yes.
Canada and Mexico are not on here.
That's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent running circles around CNN host and paid propagandist Caitlin Collins over her blatant fear-mongering about President Trump's tariffs. Welcome to Nerk News, I'm Nerkish, and sometimes establishment media is forced to encounter subjects that are beyond their 5th grade understanding of civics and causes them to make bigger fools out of themselves than usual. Case in point, their recent hysteria over President Trump's tariffs. Here's Scott Bessent schooling Collins on what's typically covered in a basic macroeconomics textbook.
A lot of these are our closest allies, South Korea, Japan. When you look at those countries and the tariffs that they're being charged, if they're calling, what would you say to those nations who may have concerns about how to lower these numbers?
Well, I would say they've been doing it to us for a long time. Right? And if they don't like tariffs, then why do they have them?
And should we view these as permanent?
I think we're going to wait and see how this plays out.
And if countries retaliate, which some have said that they would, some have said they wanted to wait and see, what is the White House's response going to be to those countries?
Well, Caitlin, one of the messages that I'd like to get out tonight is everybody sit back, take a deep breath, don't immediately retaliate. Let's see where this goes, because if you retaliate, that's how we get escalation. And
then it becomes a full-fledged trade war, in your view?
Not a trade war, depends on the country, but remember that the history of trade is we are the deficit country. The deficit country has an advantage. They are the surplus countries. The surplus countries traditionally always lose any kind of a trade escalation. So I did, as a student of economic history or a professor of economic history, I advise against it.
So you're essentially saying that they should not retaliate?
I would say that doing anything rash would be unwise.
You know, Bessent raises an excellent point there about other countries and tariffs. I mean, we're constantly told by establishment media and Democrats ad nauseum about how much better other countries' economies are. But the moment we do something remotely similar to them with tariffs, it's apparently the worst thing in the world and will lead to our imminent destruction. Because to the left, it's fine for the US to engage in an asymmetrical post-World War II exchange with other countries where we keep working against our own interests by keeping our rates low regardless of what our partners are charging. Here's Bill O'Reilly breaking down this simple fact to former CNN goon Chris Cuomo.
The data is on Trump's side. We have been getting hosed since World War II by the trade imbalance. And the reason that's been overlooked by most presidents, two reasons. Number one, way too complicated, way too risky to get involved with it. So you can do what Biden and Obama did, was just ignore it completely. In the first term, Trump tried a little, but the numbers are staggering. And the best part of Trump's speech today was that he said, if you go to Japan or South Korea or China or Germany, you're not going to see any American cars because they won't let them in. Now, you can get a little chart and say, oh, it's not 40%, it's really 8%. But the regulations that these people put on American products to get in makes it impossible. And then some European nations slap a VAT tax on there. That doesn't come under the tariff umbrella. So Trump is right. We're getting hosed. Mm-hmm.
You know, at the end of the day, that's really what all of this is about. Trump is trying to do the right thing and correct something that president after president have ignored, because fixing it can mean that we might have to experience some short-term discomfort for long-term gains, and that's not politically advantageous to the corrupt swamp creatures in Washington, who, along with the ruling class and their puppets in establishment media, seem to be opposed to anything that puts America first. Here's Bessent giving another Economics 101 lesson to a completely oblivious Caitlin Collins.
Go back all the way to Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton used them to raise revenue. He used them to protect industry. And President Trump has added the third leg of the stool, which is strategic. So, you know, if we are thinking about a 10% global tariff, and let's assume that we import about 3 trillion a year, so that's 300 billion, and that's a substantial revenue raiser that could then be used for working Americans on no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and for those buying autos, they can reduce their bills because interest on American-made cars will be tax deductible.
In the end, wouldn't that theoretically dwindle over time if people are buying more U.S. and there's less money coming in from what's being imported into the United States?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's why in the past I've called tariff policy done properly is a shrinking ice cube, because what will happen, we will start out with high tariff income, but then as the factories come to the U.S., we will have more business income and we'll have more paycheck income because American workers will be earning. So you would see it's a rebalancing. So we'd rebalance away from tariffs to more domestic income.
But the idea that it would put a dent in the national debt then would seem not to be likely, right?
Well, not at all, because for right now, we have the income that we have, and we will be adding tariff income to that. So when we get CBO scoring, the CBO scoring is not going to include any tariff income.
The simple fact here is that, among other things, the lockdowns highlighted the necessity of us having a self-reliant economy. And these tariffs could help that by allowing us to produce more products here while creating more jobs for actual Americans. And sure, it might take years and possibly require billions of dollars, but if Americans are patient enough to give this a shot, it could fix decades of damage done from neglectful politicians, and the revenue could help offset astronomical government debt, which has become yet another third rail that presidents ignore and make worse at the expense of future generations. But let me know what you think. Will the tariffs result in net positives or negatives in the long term? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye.